Hello. For fun, I thought I'd try a little something here. I thought I'd try giving a little guide for how I like to improve my posing, and hopefully this is useful to whoever's watching. So, yeah, I don't know. Just thought it'd be a fun thing to do on a Saturday. So, let's get into it. So, when I want to draw a character, and any character really, first thing I like to do is draw the head. Oh, oops. Made it too small. Damn it. Okay, there we go. Yeah, get in your cross. Put in your jaw there. Okay. So that's the basic start here. I like to do this line. So what's known as a line of action. And this will kind of determine the flow of my whole piece. Everything will kind of lead back into the flow that this line has set for me. And this will really help your posing. Now, another thing I like to do before I go into anything else is I like to decide the positioning of my hands and feet first. Because that will really help you get your silhouette right out the gate, and you can fill in the gaps later. Learned this tip from Aaron Blaise, so shout out to him. So let's draw a fist right over here. Let's draw another fist right over here. In fact, and don't be afraid to go back and play with things a little bit in case you're having some other ideas. But you know what? I think for the time being, we'll do that. And I like to do the same thing for the feet. So, and once again, keep this flow in mind. It's going to be important. There's one foot. And I'm thinking this is going to be like a running guy, like probably like the Flash or something like that. So I'm going to change up the rotation here. You see here. And because it's a running position, I like to play with perspective just a little bit. So that position is actually going to be behind a leg here, because that's what happens in a lot of comics. To really push the running, they let it go in the foreground a little bit. In fact, I'm also going to play with sizing a little bit here. So I'm going to make this one smaller because it's in the foreground, the foreground. And I'm going to do the same thing to this one. Yeah, I want to really push. I don't want to get restrained too much. I feel like a lot of artists, they get too caught up in the in getting the anatomy exactly right, and they kind of compromise nice posing along the way. So yeah, I like to do that. Now, to help with the perspective of the head, I like to draw a little square here, just to give you an idea of what angle it's supposed to be cocked in, essentially. Like that. Ear. Yeah. And that kind of gives me an idea of where everything is supposed to be. Remember that the ear lines up with the nose and kind of gives you a hint as to how tall the nose is supposed to be generally. Like that. I like to have prominent brows to really bring out the features of the face. Get in that T-zone. Oh, and something I learned recently for adding appeal in the eyes is the eye mask. So even if your character's not wearing like a Mr. Incredible mask, like put one on them anyway with the cocking eyebrow. Just because it'll really help you, like it'll really help the face give its own flow and its expression. So yeah, that'll make it really nice when it all comes together. To add some depth here. And this will all come more naturally. I apologize if I'm going a little fast, but yeah. Okay, that's enough on the face for the time being. So yeah, when it comes to the chest, I like to... Feel free to play with this however you want, but I personally like to have a nice big sphere like this to kind of give it some dimension. And I like to add a little cylinder like here, just to give an idea of like the basic shapes that we're going for. That's really all drawing is. It's breaking things down to basic shapes. You draw these for the shoulders. Yeah, and that has its own flow as well. It's got kind of a flow of its own. And because I'm playing with the perspective here, you can add another circle, and this is supposed to be the forearm. This will all come together in the end, I promise. Another circle here. I'm actually going much slower than I usually do, believe it or not. Maybe make that a little thinner. Yeah. And something else I like to do when it comes to forearms is, well, like, this is just my personal style. It's very comic book influenced, but I like to add another circle at the very end where it's supposed to connect to the elbow, because that's like a prominent feature in a lot of muscular kind of characters, like your average superhero, for instance. Yeah, I'm feeling more and more that this is just going to be the Flash. Put in another muscle there. And you don't have to be exactly married to the geometry of this. This is just supposed to be a general idea of where everything goes. Now, I like to put in some sort of indicator of where the knee is going to be for both of these. So like that. And draw the pelvis here too, so that you know at what point do the legs separate. Put in another circle here. I've gotten so used to it that I don't need the circles, but you know, it's in case you need it, it's good to fall back on. And remember to like let the drawing have a bit of flow. Let a lot of the more lines you can get to flow into each other, the better. So yeah, I think that'll do for just this exercise. It's not great, but you know, it kind of gets the point across. Yeah, so that's essentially how to improve your posing, and you can and how to implement things like line of action and flow and yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that on a low opacity layer. Make a new one. And on this new one, I'm going to really bring out the features, I think. So, yeah. Yeah. I have a very strong understanding of superhero anatomy in particular, because I used to read a lot of comic books. But yeah, this circle that we drew before over here, that kind of gives you an idea of where the pecs begin. Remember to leave room for the neck, because the neck is supposed to be there. And there's also like kind of two, not even sure what they're called really, but they're like the two kind of big bulges on either side of the neck that connect to the shoulders. This is an indicator for the rib cage. There's your hip. Put in a little six-pack. Because he is a superhero after all. Superheroes are my bread and butter. So this angle is a little tricky when it comes to the eyes, admittedly, but if you need any help, no need to panic. You can go back to your previous drawing. And this isn't the exact same color, but that's fine. You remember to have whenever you have an angle like this, remember to make certain lines, indicator lines, parallel to what you put before. You don't want anything contradicting something else. Otherwise, it's going to break the flow. I'd like to add a little line there. Yeah, I might come back to that just to make the eye bigger. I'll see how I feel about it, but for the time being. Yeah, let's actually, and also, let's make this the same color as that, actually. Fuck. Okay. And I'm going to add a little cheeky eyebrow there too, just because I like to think that the mask that he wears doesn't completely cover it up, just a little bit. And you see how the nose kind of creates a bit of depth here, because it's geometric in such a way that really kind of sells how in front it is of the face. And remember to layer things properly too. This brow should be in front of the T-zone of the nose, and then this brow is behind that, and it's kind of sticking out to give the face a bit of a silhouette. And remember the mask that we made earlier? Remember to implement that. Yeah. Now these lines here, I kind of gave a rough placement for the cheekbones earlier. Get in some nice cheekbones. And I like to really push the mouth on a lot of my things. This is kind of on the cartoony side, especially relative to the rest of the drawing, but, as you develop your own style, you sort of make it work more and more as time goes on. I'm going to make it more like that. Maybe I should... I'm kind of contradicting the things a little bit. Maybe I should do that instead. Yeah. Because that way it's not going against the flow that I've established for the head. That flow being all lines should go like this because we're looking up at him, right? He's supposed to be cocking his head up a little bit because he's looking up at something. Need to draw some teeth. And one personal touch I like to put in is the gums kind of peering out there. I don't know what this is called, but hopefully you know what it is just by looking at it. To get a little lip detail. That kind of gives you an indication of where the side of the face begins and where the front of the face begins. And add a couple of lines to indicate that he's wearing a mask. Superhero mask, that is. So yeah, it's starting to look like the Flash, but it's missing some key staples of the Flash's look. So circle here, already giving it some 3D depth. And I also want to make sure it's, again, want to stress this, following the flow of the thing. So it has to be cocked in the same position as the rest of the head. So it's kind of going downward like this, diagonally to the right. Downward right, downward right, downward right. Looks a little like Captain America too, actually, but that's not surprising. They both have like that kind of wingtip thing as a staple of their designs. In fact, I think Captain America did that first, actually, because I'm not sure. I think this version of the Flash came much later, whereas Captain America premiered in World War II. I think this design of the Flash is like 50s or 60s. But anyways. So yeah, I am kind of blazing through it a little bit because I do stuff like this like a million times a day. Been doing it since I was very little. Let's go ahead and add the Flash's signature symbol. So big circle, line, 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 line. There you go. Now it's the Flash. And you might want to go back to your fists and add a little bit of depth, actually. So I'd like to make a big square here. Circle for where the thumb begins. And I like to kind of give an indication of where each finger is. Same thing for this. Knuckle, 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 knuckle. Rectangles for the fingers. And make sure your pieces are connected too. Don't make them too geometric or too isolated. Let your lines open up a little bit, like here, to make it all look like one piece. It's okay if you don't do that for the fist when it's in this position, because it's supposed to be coming towards camera a little bit, but you can also do that. And I like to draw like a little indicator of where the elbow is here that connects to the bicep. Once again, think about how everything connects. I feel like a lot of times people try to draw muscular anatomy and they make everything too isolated. They make it look like an action figure that you can pull apart, but these are supposed to look like one big piece at the end of it. See that? Knuckle, 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 knuckle. So yeah, that's kind of it. And because of the way this perspective is, yeah, you see how, let's go back to this for a second. You see how the perspective of this arm is like kind of jutting out this way? Because it's not going outward. He's not like bending it all the way back. He's kind of pulling it back to this position, which means that the lightning bolts around his wrists should look like this, because they should follow the curvature that the arm has established. And kind of the same for this, only this is much more broad. It's basically like a perfect circle at this point. So let's do that. You see how everything connects? Like, even though I drew the knee as a separate thing earlier, like, the way it is in the overlap here kind of makes it all come together in one piece. So, yeah. Let's go. I like to draw the ankle right here. In my initial rough, I had it a little lower. Actually, hang on. I might actually go more with the rough on that one. It's okay to really take a look before you go forward with something. Again, the end of the cuff of this boot kind of follows the perspective of this calf. And the lightning bolt around his waist, going to follow the curvature of the pelvis line there. See that? I like to... So legs are interesting in that they kind of look like two or the thighs at least, they kind of look like two muscles kind of slammed together, one over here, but again, so it's interesting to think of them as that way, but again, kind of like remember to make everything look like one piece by the end. You don't want everything to look too separated. So, yeah, that's essentially it. So, yeah, it's basically the long and short of it. So I hope this helps. You can see that his pose here follows a clear line of action. His features have depth because they're all following the same consistent flow. You know, there are a lot of parallel things going on here. And a lot of pieces inform other pieces, like the positioning of them. So, yeah, eye mask, once again, has flow. The eyes kind of inform where the ear is. So does the nose, and the ear informs where those are in turn. Fist, remember to draw your hands before you draw the rest of the body, because that will really help your posing. Make it more interesting. If you focus too early on anatomy, it can really compromise your posing and make everything look super stiff. So yeah, that's basically just what I wanted to show you. And that's the Flash. Peace.